the first thing I was asking you before this, you're not actually the youngest TD in Ireland at all.
No, I'm not the youngest TD, and it kind of pisses me off when I asked you not to mention it, so thanks for bringing it up straight off the bat.
Yeah, I had to say it though, I thought you were.
No, there's a guy in Wicklow who's 25, and it really annoys me, because I'm 29, so. And he's really good as well, which is even more annoying.
Right, so you've got a lot to prove.
Yeah. Thanks, yeah. Okay, I'm just gonna go, thanks.
All right, so do you want to introduce yourself and what it is you do every day?
Yeah, I'm a Fine Gael TD. I was elected last year. I'm 29 years old. It's difficult to describe the basic day, but it's dealing with legislation, it's dealing with lobby groups, it's meeting people from all sorts of backgrounds who've got different complaints in their constituencies. And a lot of the work that I've been doing, actually since I've been elected, has been meeting and working with young entrepreneurs and new businesses and things like that.
Yeah. The interesting thing I saw about the little write-up they gave me was before this, you're actually involved in international arms.
Yeah, I used to work in nuclear weapon disarmament with the UN before I came home in 2009 and got involved in politics. But I can't really talk about that, so talk about something else.
Very clever, I like it.
No, but I suppose, I mean, working for a large organization like that actually teaches you a lot about government. And when I came back here, having worked in the UN and seeing this massive bureaucracy, and then I'm meeting all these young entrepreneurs who are trying to set up a business, a couple of lads very recently, and they're having the same problems here dealing with government. And you can understand that frustration and how these big organizations can move so slowly. And one of the things I hope I'm able to bring to the scene here is that you learn how to navigate. And then once you have that understanding of how to navigate a big organization, you hope to then apply it and change the organization so that, as Owen and I were talking about earlier on, to get it out of its own way. So it's easier and more efficient for us all to do what we know needs to be done.
Yeah, and what role do you think the government should play with like small enterprise and startups?
Well, it's a good question. It's actually quite a big question because, I mean, what role should the government play in our lives? And you're kind of starting from that point of view. And I've always been someone who favors small government. And of course the government has to be concerned with job creation, absolutely. But what we saw in the boom years was that the second highest employment growth per sector was in the public sector. And that's not proper economic management at all. And I talked to my brother who's an entrepreneur over in the UK, and I asked him, well, what do you want from politics? What do you want from politicians? And he always says, I want them to get out of my way. He knows what to do, and he finds that all the difficulties that he encounters day to day are from bureaucracy, administration, legal fees are too high, property, rent is too high, it's too difficult to employ people. So when I look at the role that government should be playing, it's kind of like that. How can we get government out of business's way so that business can do business? You know, entrepreneurs, business people, they know how to make money. We don't have to tell them, we just have to let them. And that's when you start looking about a role for government, and it's about creating the right environment. And what does that mean? It means setting corporate tax rates that will work for us. It means having laws that will help new businesses, like bankruptcy laws, because businesses will fail and they need to start again. And we need to make sure there's a positive cycle of renewal there, and that the laws of the land facilitate that. And we need proper educational policies so that, say, the right subjects and the Leaving Cert are weighted accordingly to get people into those sectors where we think the new economies will be. But then, you know, it's not that simple. What's the right environment? You know, you might say, well, it's tech, but what about the agri-food sector? You might say, well, look, we've got to look at the BRIC countries, but what about the UK? They're our largest trading partner, we can't ignore them. So that's where the debate occurs, the real interesting debate about what policies we should be pursuing to create the right environment. And I suppose just a caveat, you know, these are exceptional circumstances. We have legacy issues. So at the moment, there is a role for the government to do more, I think. But once we've gotten back to, I suppose, terra firma, then to step right back and in an ideal world, you wouldn't need the government at all, really. I mean, you wouldn't need enterprise boards. You just have people like Owen and Will and John Egan and everyone else doing what they do and doing it really well. But because of, I suppose, the peculiarity of our economic situation, right now the government actually has to do more, it has to step in more. But once we create those supports, that we can step back, because what you don't want is government ultimately subsidizing businesses that won't work, because that's counterintuitive to what we're trying to do in the first place.
Yeah, so how good a job do you think the government's doing at the moment?
Great job, best job ever. Couldn't be doing a better job. You know, it's doing a good job. You know, I mean, I'm a member of Fine Gael, but I'm I'm more critical of my own party than of others, probably. I'm new to politics, so I don't have any of this kind of history stuff that I feel that I've got to be constantly saying that we're the best and will always be the best. You know, it's something that you'll have to keep on working at, and you will make mistakes. I mean, right now, we are bringing down, say, the bankruptcy laws, but we're only bringing them down to 3 years. And in the UK, it's 1 year. And I just think when we're competing with them for so much, that maybe we need to go further. But these things take time as well. One of the positive things we've just done in the last 6 months is that if you are setting up a company and you're going to employ yourself in that company full time, you'll be able to get your income tax back that you've paid for the last 6 years if you're going to invest that in your own company. I mean, that can be potentially quite a large sum of money that you could use yourself, and I think it's quite positive. I talked about legacy issues. You know, it's difficult to get money from the banks. There are capital flow problems there, and small companies that are starting off are having difficulties just getting that initial seed funding before they're talking to guys like Will or before they're coming to places like the Startup Bootcamp. So in the next few months, we're going to set up a microfinancing fund for about €25,000 that people can come and apply to. So these are areas where the government is playing more active a role than it probably would be traditionally, but because of the circumstances that we're in, it feels it needs to. But, you know, it can always do better. It's always got to be thinking ahead. And thinking ahead isn't just thinking to next year or 2 years down the line. If you look at what's happening with China at the moment and the contacts that we're making, that's 30 years, 40 years kind of stuff, really. I mean, there'll be some very positive stuff. We saw stuff, announcements over the weekend about the bloodstock industry. Once the ban on beef imports is lifted, that'll be huge for us too. But really, if this is going to be the Chinese century that everyone thinks it will be, then we've got to be thinking about 30 years down the line, you know?
Yeah, yeah. And are you optimistic for the current startups you've seen in Ireland and come in contact with?
Yeah, I mean, you know, look where we are. I mean, this is a very cool place. There's another one next door in Dogpatch Labs. You know, there's I don't know how many people in the room this evening. I've been to quite a few of these events. There's more and more popping up all the time. There's a thing a couple of weeks ago for university entrepreneurs that was really exciting. You know, it's vibrant, there's a lot going on, but it's got to come from the people who drive it. It's got to come from the individuals who've got the ideas or the ones who want to find forums like this to come and talk together, because I know from my experience with some of the enterprise boards, they have some networking events as well, but I'm just not sure if they're getting the right people to them. I'm not sure if the right contacts are being made, because you can't ever put a price on people turning up here, you know, listening to a few people talk, having a few beers, having a chat, then going off, having an idea, and taking it from there. And that's the kind of culture you need. And when I talk to people who've come here from abroad, or when I travel, you know, one of the positive things about Dublin and about Ireland is that we have so many things occurring naturally that other countries don't. I mean, Dublin's a great city. It's a nice old medieval city. It's got a lot of character and history. In 20 minutes, you can be on the beach or up in the mountains if you like the outdoors. There's a great cultural scene. There's a great nightlife scene. People enjoy that, and it's important because in the new enterprises, you can live and work wherever you want. So you're going to live and work where you enjoy to live and work, when you've got a good quality of life. And we need to be constantly looking at ways of improving places like Dublin and Cork and Galway so that people actually want to come and live here. Because if you can run your company out of a basement or a warehouse, then the key thing is, well, why do you pick a warehouse in Dublin over New York? And that's our competition.
Yeah, and do you think Ireland is a good place to start a company compared to other countries in terms of stuff like regulation and access to funding and government support?
I think if you're coming from abroad, I think it's going to be a lot more difficult. And I know kind of negative cases where people have gone and left after coming here and trying. But again, it falls to people like Owen and not the government to try and get them here and keep them here. And that what we can do to help Owen, you know, when foreign entrepreneurs are coming to set up, the more the better. We've got competitive issues big time. I mean, we're back down to being cost competitive, say, to 2004 levels. But when we look at some key things for startup businesses like property costs, renting a space, but also knowledge of what's going on. I mean, this is the most closed economy in terms of, well, what did they pay? What are they paying for the rent? What are their building costs? Now it's confusing everything. So we need to do a lot of work there. Again, administration and legal fees are still way too high. And that's got to be addressed, and we've got something coming down the line. We hope that's going to address that as well. And it's still too difficult to employ people and get them on the books, and you've still got that basic level of bureaucracy that we've got to navigate somehow. So the government's talking about dissolving actually the enterprise boards and moving to a kind of a one-stop shop system in each of the counties. So hopefully that will work, but it's something you have to keep on looking at because everyone's looking at it. And if we're not looking at it, then our competitors are going to just get a step ahead of us. Then all of a sudden we've lost and they've taken the momentum away from us.
Yeah, so what are like the main things in your agenda for like 2012 that you'd like to see happen or going to try and make happen?
Well, I suppose, I mean, it's it's to keep on doing what we're doing, and I've got to stop from trying to plug the referendum campaign that's coming up, because I don't want to get political, but we've got to keep things stable. We've got to keep the idea that there's a sound economy here, that the banks are getting fixed, that people are starting to invest again. I mean, let's not forget, although these are difficult times, and they really are, and I confront that every day in my job, we've got over 100 billion in private money on deposit in our banks today. That's Irish money sitting there. People won't invest because they're not confident enough yet about the climate. But once we do, once we start kind of feeding that money into the system, then people will start, they'll be investing in companies, new jobs will be created, there'll be more demand, we'll be taking people off the live register. It'll be, Michael Noonan describes it as being on a knife edge. It can go one way or the other. The key thing is, though, if it goes the right way, that we're in such a great position, potentially, to just take off like a rocket and have others then following us as, we talk about us being, we were the model for the boom, and everyone copied us, or people copied us and they shouldn't have. We were the model for the bust and just how badly things could get. But, we could potentially be the model for the recovery, about how in a few amount of years, you recalibrate your economy, you reposition yourself in such a way that when the international climate, because we're a part of that, of course, is slightly more favorable, then our growth as a result of that could be exponential. So it's all about implementing policies like that that will help that. And again, looking at ways we can get out of the way. So when it comes to legal costs and fees, where we've got a legal services bill that's coming through that will address that. And hopefully we'll bring down the costs for those things. When it comes to the property market and knowing, making it cheaper, we're now trying to get NAMA to be far more reasonable with people who are tenants now of NAMA because they've taken over the properties. We're seeing some success there, but not enough. But we've just established a new regulatory authority for the property sector. So when anyone buys or sells a property, commercial or residential, you'll be able to see immediately how much it costs, what they paid for it, what are they paying in rent, what the terms are, so we can have a fair playing field and see what we can do there. So things like that coming down the line should help. But there's always going to be more that needs to be done. And that's something that we have to keep on constantly looking at.
That's great, and thanks for coming and talking to us, and to all three speakers here.
Thanks.
We're going to take a quick break.